Hello everyone! Today we are going to finish this saga of differential problems. Now, I have gone through center diff in this car, I have replaced drive shaft, CV axles, and the final thing that I've got to do is replace my rear diff. There's something wrong with it. Maybe later we'll take it apart and actually look and see what's going on inside there, but it's got some resistance when you try to turn it over. So I've got a new diff. It's the same final drive ratio. You got to make sure that that's happening, and I'm going to just basically show you how to swap out a diff today, and then we can finally move off of all this transmission talk and onto maybe some racing and some other things. So stay tuned. So here's the rear diff as it sits in the car. We're going to have to take off the axles, as well as a bracket that holds it up right down there in the middle. And these two bolts up here, these 17s, we're going to have to figure out a way to hopefully crack those loose. And then we also have to get this exhaust out of the way. That's mostly just for ease of working and so that we can get these axles actually to come out of the car. So I'm going to try my best to take this off in one piece just to save some time, but ultimately I may have to take all the connections off. This comes in multiple pieces, like most aftermarket exhausts, and I'll just have to put it back together later. Okay, got my exhaust out of the way. Now that I have some room, I'm gonna go ahead and drain the diff. And technically this isn't the right size for this. That's not working. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to heat up this surrounding area with some MAP gas. It doesn't usually take too much. Don't want to sit there and roast everything. Keep this from dropping into I'm not going to. I'm gonna have to go grab a magnet. But there we go. Well, still dropped in. Well, this fluid is actually pretty new because I put it in because I was curious. The fluid level is so low that I was curious if I filled it with fluid, if it would actually behave, but that didn't work out. So next thing I've got to do is I've got to move back to the drive shaft, which is further up on the car, and there's 4 bolts. You'll have to have your tires in the air because you have to rotate the drive shaft over to get to all 4 of them, and I'm gonna get the drive shaft disconnected from the rear diff. So here we are at the drive shaft, and 4 bolts will look slightly different. This new drive shaft I got didn't have a cutout to hold the bolts. They're kind of instead of circle, they have like a flat end, so they butt against the edge of the drive shaft. And so mine is different for some reason or another. But there's just 4 of them. Take the 2 off, you'll rotate the drive shaft around. Now you need your e-brake off, and you need the wheels in the air in order to do that. So take those 4 bolts off, and then this drive shaft just pops off and drops down. It's that easy. Okay, I got all 4 bolts off the drive shaft, and it literally just wiggles forward, and then it's free. So that's that. Now next I've got this mounting bracket, and you pretty much have to take the whole bracket off because this loops up through the diff. So these need to come off. They are, I believe, 17s. Luckily I can get an impact on them because they look pretty cruddy. And then there's 2 more bolts at the back that we'll also have to do. Now at this point, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and take a jack and put it underneath the diff. Center of balance is going to be around here because most of the gears are in the back, and that's where the weight is. So do your best guess. I have a new one, or a different one, so I can kind of try to figure that out before I do this. And I will get that back together. Now I've got to fish my drain plug out of the stupid drain pan so I can plug the diff and have it stop dripping. So I'm gonna get to work on removing this bracket. Hey Roo. Okay, so this isn't really a problem, but this nut came off just fine. This was frozen to the this one was frozen to the rod that goes into the back. It goes through this mount and into the back of the diff. So this one's frozen up. So I'm just going to back it out. I'm clear for when I do lower my diff. And then when it's back up in position, I'll just have to put that back in that way. I'm going to have to remove this one anyways from this diff to get it into the other one. So that's not a huge deal for me. And this is really only a problem I think you'll run into on the Legacies, because the spare wheel well is so much deeper that there's not enough room to pull these all the way out. On the STIs and WRXs, typically, sorry, my dog's sniffing me. There's enough room to pull those all the way out. So this is a Legacy specific problem, as well as getting the diff all the way out is kind of a Legacy specific problem also. And I'll kind of show you what I mean. Otherwise, if this is a STI, this is much easier of a job to do. So the next thing I did, or going to do, I guess, as far as you're concerned, is take a pry bar and you pry these out. Now it's going to be a little bit harder. In fact, I had to use a mallet and whack my pry bar to get that all the way out. But that makes the axle pop out of the rear diff. And now I think we are ready to start lowering this thing down. I just have to take the bolts out of that. I've got my jack set up under here, ready to go. And we'll start lowering this down. Okay, just for simplicity's sake, I took off this mount. It's 2 more 17s, not a big deal. Now, in order to get our diff free, we literally just slide it forward. And once that stud is clear, we're good to start lowering it. So I'm kind of need 2 hands, unfortunately, to do that, because I've got to lower this jack a little bit. But so you just kind of lower it, tilt it forward, and it comes out. The trickiest part of this whole operation is getting the axles out of the diff. I'm really terribly sorry that kind of happened fast. Basically, once the diff started falling down, it was hung up on that post, obviously. So once it started falling down, I popped it free, and it just kind of fell out. And then the axles, being already popped free, fell out of it also. Really cool that it worked that way, because I've heard nightmares of people having to take off hubs and all kinds of things. But I think since I had my car jacked up so high, that really helped. So diff is out, and you know, this is kind of the sign that there's a lot of play in it. And then when I go to this new one, well, let's see if I can get there's not any, and I don't know if you can feel that. Now I do need to make sure that this is the same size as what I have. If not, I'm gonna have to take this nut off and swap out these flanges. Here's the rear diff I got to replace it. And you'll notice that it's pretty rough as far as just having rust. That shouldn't affect the performance of it at all. But what I may do is probably swap off the backing plate and these covers for the axles right here. I'm probably going to go ahead and swap those out, as well as I might put some new seals in it just for safe measure, because I'd really hate this thing to start leaking once I get it installed. Okay, this is the old diff, and just for the fun of it, I mean, I'm going to reuse this on the new diff I have because that's just so crusty looking. I'm also going to take these and swap them out just because these are pretty crusty looking. Now, does it affect anything? Probably not. And it's like, looking at this, I don't see any major problems, but you can tell as you turn it over, it all of a sudden gets crunchy and there's a bunch of resistance. Like, I can barely turn it over right there. And then it frees up, and that's what was causing that horrible sound. Is under light load and idle, it was hitting that hard spot to turn and causing the drive shaft to jump, and that's really all it was. It was sending shockwaves through the drive shaft. This might be something that's fixable. I don't really know that much about differentials, and so I may, yeah, like it's completely, there we go. Now it spins freely again. So I don't know if that's a bad bearing or what. But right there, it is like completely messed up. But the teeth themselves actually look okay. I almost just wonder if there's something stuck on the inside of this thing. So I'm going to do a little bit more investigating. That's a whole nother project to see if I can repair this one. That way I have a spare. Because I really don't want to spend another $1,000 on a diff again out of nowhere. And with this car making 600 now, going to get turned up to 750, 800, who knows what. I'm going to be burning through diffs, so I just might as well have a spare. Okay, so I have to put this flange on that. Getting those nuts off was quite the deal. I had to have my buddy with a much bigger impact come and get it. And now we got to pull these flanges off with the press. I guess I pull it. Again, excessive, but it's almost like the right tool helps a lot, huh?
Oh, it does.
Sorry we didn't record very much, but what we ended up doing is taking all of the guts out of the rusted diff case and putting them in this. The bearings and everything in here, the carrier bearing that's up here, still great. So we took the pinion and the shaft out, swapped this, that way we kept this on this unit, and basically built this transmission, or this rear diff, I'm sorry. So all that's left is to throw this back in the car, and we should be golden. You can tell such a difference just by turning the diff over. It's smooth, there's no play. So this is definitely going to work. It's just glad to have it replaced and ready to go in. So this is the culprit of most of the problems. These are not supposed to be that thin. They are literally about as sharp as a knife. Like if I slid my finger along that, it would cut it, because I have. So that was allowing there to be slop as the ring gear wiggled around in there, and it wasn't seating correctly, and eventually it would bind because of the spacing being off. So this thing is barely holding on. These things are razor thin. So it was definitely time to put a new diff in, and I'm glad we got it figured out. I was definitely stuck until somebody with some bigger tools came along. So keep that in mind if you're trying to do this. It's going to take quite a bit of impact force to get that nut that goes at the end of this off if you have to swap the flange out. If you don't, and you just have a already sealed up diff that you want to swap in, you don't have to do any of this, and that's what I would suggest and what I tried to do. But when I got the new diff in, it was just too crusty and I didn't want to put that in my car. So we took all of the parts out of it and put it in the much nicer diff case that we pulled out of the car. Okay, so we've got the diff on the jack back under the car. It doesn't want to stay on that jack too well, but it'll work good enough. So the first thing we're going to do, since we didn't pull the hubs out or take the axles out or anything, we're going to actually put the axles in as we lift the diff up, just how they came out when we dropped it. So if your car is jacked up high enough, this isn't too bad of a deal. So we're going to take each axle and put it back into their respective axle hole. And then we will start lifting this up. I'm going to set the camera on a tripod and see if I can record it, because I'm going to kind of need both hands to guide the diff up with the jack. So that being said, I'm going to get started. The other thing I'm going to have handy is my cross member that goes between there and the bolts that go through it, because as soon as I get this up in place, I'd like to hold it there and it not fall on my face. So I'm going to get started doing that. Okay, axles are in. Okay. All that's really left now is, as far as functioning driveline goes, is attaching this back. I was able to get these in. I just hit it with a rubber mallet right there. Not super hard, not so hard that it's going to cut the rubber cup, but just some taps with the mallet and sent those home. Did the other side as well. So really all I have to do is attach this to this flange right here, fill it with fluid, and then put the exhaust back on, and we're ready to rock. So I'm going to do that real quick, and I will get back to you when I'm done. To reward you for your patience with me, we're going to do a quick pull.